What if the world's largest desert is actually keeping Earth alive? Sounds impossible, but the Sahara Desert might be doing far more than just spreading heat and sand. Hidden inside those endless dunes is a climate system so powerful, changing it could save the planet, or completely destabilize it. Right now, scientists and engineers are discussing something that sounds like science fiction: terraforming the Sahara, turning 8.6 million square kilometers of brutal desert into forests, rivers, farms, and green life. An area almost the size of the United States. And the reason behind it is terrifyingly simple. Climate change is accelerating faster than expected. Carbon emissions keep rising. Temperatures keep climbing. So humanity is searching for massive solutions. Not small changes. Not recycling campaigns. Planet-scale engineering. And this is where it gets weird. If the Sahara became green, scientists estimate it could remove up to 7.6 billion tons of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere every single year. That's not a typo. Billions of tons. Suddenly, the impossible idea starts sounding very real. But here's the strange part. The Sahara wasn't always a desert. Thousands of years ago, it looked completely different. Rivers flowed across the land. Massive lakes existed where dunes now stand. Animals roamed freely. Humans lived there. Some scientists call it the Green Sahara, which raises a disturbing question. If nature transformed the Sahara once before, could humans force it to happen again? The first challenge is scale. This isn't some tiny desert restoration project. This is the largest hot desert on Earth. A place so massive you could fit entire countries inside it. And yet, we've already tested the idea. In China, the Kabuki Desert Restoration Project managed to green 1/3 of a desert using over 70 plant species. What once looked dead slowly came back to life. Trees appeared. Soil recovered. Temperatures changed. Rainfall increased. And that's when scientists started asking the dangerous question: what happens if we scale this up to the Sahara? Because if it works, it could change the future of Earth forever. But that's not even the craziest part. The real plan sounds like something from a futuristic movie. First, millions of trees would be planted across the Sahara. Not random trees. Carefully selected species designed to survive extreme heat. One of the top candidates? Eucalyptus trees. Fast-growing. Tough. Resistant to harsh climates. And capable of absorbing huge amounts of carbon dioxide. But trees alone wouldn't survive in the Sahara. They'd need water. An impossible amount of water. So engineers came up with another radical idea. Massive desalination systems along the African coastline. Ocean water would be transformed into fresh water, then pumped deep underground through giant pipe networks stretching across the desert. And this is where things get even stranger. The water wouldn't spray above the ground. That would evaporate instantly in Sahara heat. Instead, underground irrigation systems would feed water directly into tree roots beneath the sand itself. Like an artificial circulatory system for an entire continent. If successful, the changes would begin slowly at first. Roots would stabilize the soil. Plants would trap moisture. Temperatures would start falling. Scientists believe the Sahara could cool by nearly 8 degrees Celsius. But then something unexpected happens. Rain returns. Because forests don't just grow in climates. They help create them. Trees release moisture into the atmosphere. Moisture forms clouds. Clouds create rain. Rain grows more plants. More plants create more rain. A feedback loop powerful enough to rewrite ecosystems. And suddenly, the deadliest desert on Earth begins transforming into something alive. Cities could expand. Agriculture could explode. Entire economies across North Africa might change forever. Sounds perfect, right? Not even close. Because every climate system on Earth is connected in ways most people never realize. And changing one giant piece of the puzzle could trigger consequences nobody can fully predict. What happens next changes everything. As the Sahara becomes wetter, one ancient threat returns with it. Locusts. Billions of them. Most people think of locusts as tiny pests. They're not. A single swarm can consume more food in one day than thousands of humans. Now imagine swarms multiplying across millions of newly green hectares. Entire farms could disappear overnight. Food systems could collapse. And suddenly, the dream of a green paradise starts looking more like the beginning of another disaster. But even that isn't the biggest danger. Because hidden above the Sahara, something invisible is happening every single day. Something so important that without it, an entirely different ecosystem might die. And almost nobody talks about it. Every year, billions of tons of Sahara dust leave Africa. Not a little dust. Massive atmospheric rivers of sand. The particles rise into the sky, cross the Atlantic Ocean, and travel thousands of kilometers through the air. At first, it sounds useless. Why would dust matter? But here's the shocking part. That dust is one of Earth's most important survival systems. Because eventually, it lands in South America, right on top of the Amazon rainforest. The Sahara is secretly feeding the Amazon. Scientists discovered that Sahara dust contains phosphorus and nutrients desperately needed by rainforest ecosystems. Without those nutrients, the Amazon slowly loses fertility. And that changes everything. Because suddenly, terraforming the Sahara creates a terrifying possibility. Save one ecosystem, destroy another. And this is where the entire story flips upside down. The Sahara isn't just a desert we want to fix. It may already be performing a hidden planetary function. Without the Sahara's dust, the Amazon could weaken. Rainfall patterns might change. Biodiversity could collapse. Carbon storage could shrink. Ironically, the very project designed to fight climate change might accidentally accelerate it somewhere else. And that creates an impossible question. What if the desert exists for a reason? For decades, humans looked at deserts as empty wastelands. Broken places. Land waiting to be improved. But nature doesn't create systems randomly. Every environment affects another. Every climate pattern connects to something larger. And the Sahara might be one of the biggest climate engines on Earth. But here's the strange part. We still don't fully understand it. Scientists can model possibilities. They can estimate outcomes. But nobody can predict every domino effect from changing an entire continent. What happens to Atlantic weather systems? What happens to African monsoons? What happens to global wind circulation? Nobody knows for sure. And that uncertainty is terrifying. Because humanity has tried controlling nature before. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes it created disasters nobody expected. Introducing species into ecosystems. Redirecting rivers. Deforesting entire regions. Each time, the consequences echoed for generations. Now imagine making changes on a scale visible from space. That's what makes the Sahara Project different. It's not just environmental engineering. It's planetary engineering. And once it starts, there may be no undo button. But the deeper scientists looked into the idea, the more disturbing the truth became. Because the biggest obstacle was never technology. It was human nature itself. Terraforming the Sahara would cost around $2 trillion every single year. Not once. Every year. That number is almost impossible to comprehend. And suddenly, the biggest challenge becomes obvious. Who pays for it? Because climate change affects everyone. But countries rarely agree on solutions when the costs become enormous. Some nations would benefit more than others. Some would take the risks. Others might refuse entirely. And that creates a dangerous political problem. Who gets to redesign Earth's climate? Because once you start altering rainfall, temperatures, and ecosystems across continents, you're not just changing nature anymore. You're changing power. Food production changes. Water access changes. Migration patterns change. Economic systems change. And this is where it gets weird. A greener Sahara might actually reshape civilization itself. Regions once considered uninhabitable could become fertile. Populations might move. New trade routes could emerge. Entire industries could rise from land that was once pure sand. But every gain creates new tension. Who controls the water pipelines? Who controls the forests? Who owns newly fertile land? And history tells us something important. Whenever resources appear, conflict usually follows. But here's the strangest twist of all. Nature may already be trying to green the Sahara naturally. Scientists discovered that Earth's climate shifts over long cycles. Tens of thousands of years ago, changes in Earth's orbit helped transform the Sahara into grasslands and lakes. Then the cycle reversed. The desert returned. Which means the Sahara isn't static. It's alive in geological time. And that raises a haunting possibility. What if humanity forces the transformation too early? Could artificial intervention destabilize systems that are meant to evolve slowly over thousands of years? Nobody truly knows. And that uncertainty becomes more terrifying the larger the project grows. Because unlike a failed building or a failed machine, you can't easily reverse a failed continent. And yet, despite all the risks, scientists still seriously discuss it. Why? Because climate desperation changes how humans think. As temperatures rise and disasters worsen, impossible ideas start becoming acceptable. And that's when civilizations often make their boldest decisions, or their worst mistakes. But the final revelation is the most unsettling part of all, because this entire project forces humanity to confront one terrifying question. Are we actually smart enough to redesign Earth? For thousands of years, humans adapted to nature. Now we're preparing to rewrite it. That shift changes everything. Terraforming the Sahara sounds heroic at first. A massive green wall against climate change. Billions of trees pulling carbon from the sky. Cooler temperatures. New life spreading across dead land. But underneath the optimism lies something far more dangerous. Control. Because once humanity successfully transforms one ecosystem, where does it stop? Do we alter oceans next? Refreeze the Arctic? Engineer clouds? Control rainfall? At what point does Earth stop being natural at all? And this is where the story becomes deeply unsettling. The Sahara itself may already be part of a balance we barely understand. Its heat drives atmospheric circulation. Its dust feeds distant rainforests. Its winds influence storms. Remove one piece, and the consequences could ripple across the planet in ways impossible to predict. That's the terrifying reality of climate engineering. The bigger the solution, the bigger the gamble. But here's the strange part. Humanity may eventually attempt it anyway, because climate pressure keeps increasing. Every year gets hotter. Every disaster becomes more expensive. And eventually, governments may decide that doing nothing is even riskier. That's when projects once considered insane suddenly become policy. And if that day comes, the Sahara could become the largest experiment in human history. An experiment visible from orbit. One capable of changing ecosystems, economies, and weather patterns for generations. But maybe the most important lesson isn't about deserts at all. Maybe it's about humility. Because the deeper scientists study Earth, the more they discover something shocking. Nature is infinitely more interconnected than humans assumed. A dust storm in Africa feeds trees in South America. Ocean temperatures affect rainfall continents away. Tiny atmospheric changes reshape global climates. Everything is connected. And that means every solution creates new problems. Every fix triggers new consequences. And maybe that's the real mystery humanity still hasn't solved. Not whether we can terraform the Sahara, but whether we truly understand the planet we're trying to control. Because if we get it wrong, the damage might not appear immediately. It could unfold slowly, silently, across decades, until one day humanity realizes the planet didn't need saving from nature. It needed saving from us. And the scariest part? We may not know the outcome until it's already too late.